headlines. The North Korean regime marks the 3-year anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death while tipping off a new era under his successor, Kim Jong-un. The plummeting Russian ruble sparks worldwide jitters and pushes investors to pull their money out of risky assets. And Pakistanis mourn as funerals got underway Wednesday for 142 people killed in a Taliban attack on a military-run school. Hello and welcome to the program coming to you live from Seoul. I am Kang Tae-ri. North Korea commemorated the 3rd anniversary of its former leader Kim Jong-il on this Wednesday. Pyongyang's official Korean Central News Agency reported today that the communist state mourned the death of its late leader with horns ringing out around the regime at noon. Kim's son, current North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, together with his wife Lee Seol-ju, hosted a commemoration ceremony at the Kumsusan Memorial Palace. Some of North Korea's top officials were present at the ceremony, including Kim Jong-nam, North Korea's ceremonial head of state, and North Korean special envoy Choi Ryong-hae. Kim Jong-un's aunt, Kim Jong-hee, was not seen, though. CNN reported earlier this month that she died of a stroke during an argument with her nephew, Kim Jong-un, over the execution of her husband, Chang Song-taek, last year. If you remember, back in 2011, there were doubts about whether Kim Jong-un would be able to fill his father's boots. Fast forward 3 years, and now experts are crediting him with building up an inner circle of aides and officials that he can trust. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
He's bold and charismatic with the military, warm and friendly with children, and not afraid to reveal his weaknesses. At the same time, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un rules with an iron fist. 3 years into power, the young Kim is believed to be in the final stages of forming his own power base, ruthlessly removing anyone perceived to be disloyal. The 31-year-old launched a reign of terror last year when he executed his uncle Chang Song-taek. Since then, Chang's wife Kim Jong-il has vanished from the public eye, apparently replaced by Kim's younger sister Yeojung, who has been given a vice ministerial position in the party. And Kim Jong-un makes sure that no one gains too much power. Choi Ryong-hae, who is generally regarded as the second most powerful figure within the regime, has frequently moved up and down the power ladder.
So he's been using his powers of appointment, dismissal, promotion, and putting people into place, into offices, and in exchange they provide political loyalty.
While Kim Jong-il bestowed immense power to the military during a famine in the 1990s, the young Kim has shifted command back to the party.
During the Kim Jong-un era, operations within the party have been normalized. The military has been placed under the party, no longer a special class, enjoying special favors.
Going forward, Kim Jong-un is expected to step out of his father's shadows and rule North Korea his way.
Kim Jong-un-style politics, economy, social culture, diplomacy, and defense. It's highly likely that Kim Jong-un introduces policies led by him that bear his own colors.
This while bearing a striking resemblance to his grandfather and North Korean founder Kim Il-sung, which experts say is part of attempt to justify the third-generation power succession. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
The Hollywood movie with a plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un is set to be released on Christmas Day in the U.S., but those that hacked into Sony Pictures that made this film last month have made some serious threats, advising against watching this film. Shin Se-min has more.
Remember the 11th of September 2001. That's the warning from hackers who want to stop the Sony Pictures movie The Interview from being released in U.S. theaters. The comedy is set to hit screens around the country on Christmas Day. In a message posted Tuesday, the group, which calls itself Guardians of Peace, threatened a movie maker, saying, "We will clearly show it to you at the very time and places the interview will be shown, including the premiere, how bitter fate those who seek fun and terror should be doomed to." Fingers are expected to be pointed at Pyongyang for this latest threat. There have been unfounded rumors North Korea was behind last month's cyber attack on Sony Pictures because of the nature of the movie's plot. The movie stars Seth Rogen and James Franco as celebrity journalists who score an interview with Kim Jong-un, only to have the CIA order them to use the opportunity to pull off an assassination. The two actors have called off media appearances, and the New York premiere has been canceled in response to the threats. U.S. government officials have been quoted as saying that they're aware of the message, but they're downplaying the warning, saying it's highly unlikely the hackers would try and make good on their threat. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The troubled Russian economy has investors running from Moscow in search of safer markets, and its currency crisis is also unleashing a negative ripple effect on other emerging markets. Kim Jongil tells us more.
The falling ruble and collapse of Moscow's bond and stock markets are rattling investors as they unload bonds in search of safer havens.
In such an unstable and volatile atmosphere, many fundamental factors are not working anymore and panic prevails, which is not good. At this moment, the mood in the market is not very positive.
The crisis is having a ripple effect on other emerging markets, sparking a sell-off in countries like Mexico, Brazil, and India, which have been relying on foreign capital inflows to fund their growth. But this sudden exodus of money could jeopardize their fragile economies. Experts also worry of further negative effects, especially if large state-run energy companies get cut off from the bond market and are left with no other financing options. This could lead to slowing investments and growth, resulting in corporate defaults down the line. Market analysts say with falling oil prices and Russia edging towards a return to its financial meltdown of 1998, the country's exclusion from the MSCI Emerging Markets Index is strongly being considered. Kim Jongil, ARIRANG News.
And reflecting the plunging global oil prices, Korea's producer prices slipped again for the fourth straight month in November. The Bank of Korea says the producer price index, which is an indicator of future consumer inflation, dropped nearly 1% in November from a year earlier. That's the lowest level since December 2010. With Dubai crude plunging by more than 11% last month, the price of petroleum products also went down in November, falling nearly 20% compared to November last year. But prices of agricultural goods jumped to more than 2% in the same period. President Pakistanis says she plans to transform Korea's production-centered industrial complexes into hubs for creative industries where innovative ideas are commercialized. At the opening of Korea's fourth Economic Innovation Center in the southeastern city of Gumi, the president noted that complexes in the region had helped to vitalize local economies over the past 40 years, but added that it's time to increase production by way of the Internet of Things and big data. President Park's innovation centers are part of her Creative Economy initiative, where startups, local governments, and research institutes are matched up to receive various support from conglomerates. Two-way trade between South Korea and Vietnam is on course to smash an all-time yearly high in terms of volume this year, and it's expected to rise even further as their bilateral free trade agreement deal is set to come into effect in the months to come. Kim Jongil tells us more.
Korea and Vietnam are hitting it off on the trade front. Trade volume between the two countries is forecast to surpass $30 billion for the first time this year. The accumulated volume between the two already recorded $25 billion during the January to October period, 40 times more than what was recorded when they first opened trade ties some 40 years ago. And it seems the volume is expected to shoot up even further, as a bilateral free trade agreement was concluded concluded earlier this month. With the FTA deal, Korean exports to Vietnam are expected to increase by up to 28%, while Vietnamese exports to Korea are projected to increase by 20%. In turn, it's expected to boost Korea's GDP by up to 0.7% and increase Vietnam's by more than 3%. Vietnam is currently Korea's 8th largest trading partner, while Korea is Vietnam's 6th largest. Korea's exports to Vietnam are mainly in the form of intermediate goods such as steel, petrochemical products, and electronic components. A large portion of their imports of Korean goods are made by some 3,000 Korean companies currently located in Vietnam. For example, Korean exports of telecommunications parts rose sharply by 24% this year from the previous year, following a $5 billion investment by Korea's Samsung Electronics after it built a plant in the Southeast Asian nation. Korea imports textiles and agriculture and fisheries products from Vietnam and is expected to open up its market for nearly 500 additional Vietnamese products. Kim Jongil, ARIRANG News.
The former vice president of Korean Air, Cho Hyun-ah, is facing questioning by prosecutors as we speak over her recent nut rage incident. As she entered the building, she stood in front of reporters with her head bowed and said she was sorry. Attention is now on what kind of charges she will be facing. Our Kim Min-ji tells us more.
The probe into the nut rage controversy continues. Cho Hyun-ah, the former vice president of Korean Air, appeared before prosecutors in Seoul on Wednesday afternoon. She walked through the media waiting outside with her head down and said she was sorry but didn't respond to any questions. Attention is being drawn to whether an arrest warrant will be issued for Jo, who allegedly made a Seoul-bound Korean Air flight turn back to the gate to deboard the head of cabin crew, all because she was upset that her nuts were not served according to the manual for first-class passengers. Prosecutors will look into whether Jo's actions broke aviation laws. Jo has admitted to telling the head of cabin crew to deboard, but says she never ordered the plane to turn around. Jo will also be questioned on whether she engaged in evidence tampering. Crew members and a passenger who witnessed the incident say Korean Air officials had pressured them to give false testimonies. Prosecutors are also looking into whether abusive language and violence was used. But Jo denies allegations of any type of physical abuse. This comes after Korea's Transportation Ministry on Tuesday filed a complaint with the prosecution against the former executive. Korean Air could also be hit with a fine of up to $1.3 million or even a 3-week-long suspension of operations between New York and Seoul. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
In this next report, we talk about a hit at the local box office. It's called My Love, Don't Cross That River. And it's about a couple that's been together for 3/4 of a century. And what's interesting is that the makeup of the audience is quite young. Kwon Soo-ah tells us more.
할머니도 그래.
그러면 더 나았어?
더 나았죠.
그럼 난 또 당신이랑 양주가 그래. 아이고 그냥 전화네. 아이고 좋소야 이쁘네요.
Not many words were needed for this documentary to warm the hearts of more than 1 million moviegoers in Korea. My Love, Don't Cross That River tells the true 76-year love story of an elderly couple. 89-year-old Kang Ge-yeol and 98-year-old Jo Byung-man have been together since 1938. Director Jin Mo-young decided to zoom in on the couple's simple life in a mountainous village in Gangwon-do province after watching an earlier TV documentary about them called Gray-Haired Lovers. The film was released in 186 theaters late last month, but due to its popularity, it's now being shown on more than 800. Last weekend, the documentary beat out Hollywood blockbuster Interstellar. What's interesting is that the number of young people checking out the film is higher than expected. More than half of the viewers have been in their 20s.
I felt a lot while watching The Grandmother.
I learned what real love is about.
I really enjoyed it. I want everyone to watch it.
The movie has brought tears to viewers and film critics alike, who say the lifelong love story shows that real love does not wither with age. Kumsusan, ARIRANG News.
In what's become somewhat of an annual tradition, Google has released its own top 10 most searched items of this year. From celebrities to tragic events, the list provides a snapshot of the things that got people thinking and talking about in 2014. Connie Lee has the details.
It's that time of year again when Google releases its roundup of the most searched terms over the past 12 months. So what made the cut for 2014? Coming in at number 1, Robin Williams. The actor's sudden death this past August shocked the world and made his name the most searched this year. Coming in at number 2 was this year's World Cup in Brazil, followed by the Ebola outbreak, which has killed nearly 7,000 people to date. Another tragedy comes in at number 4, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. And rounding out the top 5 was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. The movement to help raise awareness of ALS went viral this past summer, with dozens of Korean celebrities also taking part. The popular mobile game Flappy Bird is next on the list, followed by Conchita Wurst, the Austrian winner of this year's Eurovision Song Contest, who performs in drag. The Islamic State militant group that has brought terror to the world finished in 8th place. On a brighter note, Disney's hit movie Frozen comes in at 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was the Sochi Olympics. So there you have it. This list is derived from the more than 100 billion searches per month on Google, which controls 2/3 of the internet search engine market. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Pakistan is reeling from a heinous attack on a school that's left more than 140 people so far, most of them dead, most of them young children too. With more on this story and others, we turn to Paul Lee at the News Center. Paul, the Taliban has claimed responsibility for this massacre, which has been condemned by the international community. It's such a tragic situation. How are the families there coping?
Well, funerals for students and teachers, as well as 3 days of national mourning, are being observed after Tuesday's siege on the school in Peshawar. The government has vowed retribution against the militants responsible as public pressure mounts against Pakistan's leadership to do more in tackling this deadly insurgency. Our Connie Kim reports.
What began as a regular school day for students in the city of Peshawar ended in tragedy. 7 gunmen intent on killing cut through the wire fence of a military-run school and started in the auditorium where an event was being held and opened fire. The assailants then went door to door, shooting students and teachers in their classrooms. At the end of their 8-hour assault, at least 145 people, mostly students, were dead. The siege ended in a shootout, with the Pakistani military killing all 7 attackers. The Taliban quickly claimed responsibility, saying it was revenge for a Pakistani military offensive that has been targeting the Taliban's base of power since June. Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said his government would not back down.
Our prayers go to the families whose children were killed in this tragedy. I think this war and struggle will continue until the terrorism is completely rooted out of this country.
World leaders were quick to condemn the violence.
No cause can justify such a brutality. No grievance can excuse such a horror. It is an act of horror and rank cowardice to attack defenseless children while they learn.
U.S. President Barack Obama said that terrorists had once again showed their depravity. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, Pakistan's longtime rival, said the school attack was a crime against humanity and called for vigilant action. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And turning now to Australia, where the country is still dealing with its own tragedy. Thousands of people have come out to pay their tribute to the two hostages who never made it out alive after a 16-hour-long siege at a cafe in Sydney earlier this week.
That's right, and it has emerged that those two fateful victims died while trying to save their fellow captives in the final moments of that standoff. In a memorial service on Wednesday, Archbishop Anthony Fisher said 34-year-old cafe manager Tori Johnson tried to wrestle the gun out of the hostage-taker's hands, which triggered the police raid. This as 38-year-old lawyer and mother of three Katrina Dawson was shielding a pregnant friend from the gunshots. Meanwhile, people are continuing to lay flowers and offer condolences at an impromptu shrine near the scene of the crisis.
Well, I work in the city every day, half a block from where it happened, so it's pretty close to home. A lot of the people I've seen on the TV I have interacted with. They're not my friends, but it's just a small thing that you can do, you know. It's showing that we're proud and we won't let this beat us.
Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott acknowledged that a new tough national security law that was passed in October had failed to prevent the hostage crisis. He promised a transparent investigation on why the Iranian refugee with a long criminal history and links to Islamic extremism was not put on any terror watch list.
And shifting now to West Africa, Paul, Britain, one of the countries leading this fight against Ebola, has said it soon expects the first breakthrough in defeating the outbreak. What kind of timeline are we talking about?
Well, the head of the British Ebola Response Task Force, Donald Brown, says he expects the breakthrough to come within 4 to 6 weeks following a surge in international support. Now, that date will also mark the first year since this current epidemic began, which has become the worst of its kind on record. The optimistic outlook comes as Britain announced on Tuesday that it will not be seeking the help of U.S. military personnel in order to combat Ebola in Sierra Leone. London says it's hoping to turn the tide on its own as it sees a slowdown in the spread of the deadly virus.
Transmission rates are already falling, but we should be absolutely clear that there is a long way to go in this battle against Ebola. As we are getting out there into the districts, you're seeing the numbers rise because we're getting a truer picture of just how bad this disease is. So you will see more work, more effort going in over the coming months.
Sierra Leone has been the hardest hit country, accounting for over half of the 18,000 confirmed Ebola cases. The British military plans to boost its force of 800 soldiers across 6 Ebola treatment centers concentrated in the capital, Freetown. However, the government there has criticized the response as being too slow.
And finally, Apple has won a major antitrust lawsuit in the U.S. worth up to $1 billion over its iPod business and alleged unfair market practices. Give us the details on this case.
Well, this trial has been in the making for over a decade now, and it's also a throwback to the legacy of Apple's iPod revolution, which helped change the way we buy and consume music today. A federal jury in California cleared Apple of charges on Tuesday that the company abused its dominant position in the portable music device market. The class action suit, which covered some 8 million iPod users, was first launched by a group of consumers in 2005. They accused the U.S. tech giant of using copy protection software to block competing online music services and rival hardware makers such as Samsung and Sony. In their defense, Apple executives argue that its iTunes software only intended to provide security from hackers. Charity?
All right, Paul, thank you so much for those stories, and we will see you again in just about 2 hours.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the latest weather updates. Frigid, icy conditions have set in nationwide, and cold wave advisories continue to be in effect in most regions, and strong brisk winds are making things feel colder than the actual numbers. It looks like more snow is in store. Those on the west coast, where a heavy snowfall alert has been issued, are looking at about 1 to 5 centimeters, while up to 10 centimeters is expected down in Jeju. Brace yourselves for more freezing temperatures tomorrow, as morning lows here in Seoul will dip to -13. Now, looking ahead, it looks like snow and showers are in store on Friday and Saturday. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul will only mix it to -12 in the afternoon. Daegu hits 0, Gwangju reaches 2. On to other regions. Jeju makes it to 5, Dokdo hits 2, Mount Kumgang dips to -6. Those are the updates I have for you now. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Pyongyang, and that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News at 8. Thanks for watching.